The plan was to arrive in Auckland, spend a night uptown, and then the next 3 days riding down to Dunedin to cover the National HOG Rally. I was there to cover the event for Kiwi Rider magazine and tagged along for the ride aboard a new Dyna Switchback. Adam, aka the forklift driver, was aboard a Road Glide Custom, and Tim, Mr. Snowtown for this ride, had the Fat Boy Low. We had a nice meal in Auckland with the Kiwi Rider crew and an early night before picking up the bikes at Auckland Motorcycles on Tuesday morning. With little ado, we headed straight down the freeway with a first goal of Taupo or beyond via the Mangakino Gorge. We were keen to put as many miles in as possible before we hit the forecast rain. We rode through the rolling Waikato Hill Country in pretty good conditions, with the clouds starting to build by the time we reached Mangakino. Through the gorge and up to the plateau, we made great time through to Taupo. Tongariro and its magnificent peaks were shrouded in cloud, so we didn't get to see the best of the lake and the spectacle that a clear day brings. So, as we were ahead of schedule, we continued around the lake to Turangi and a stop at the burger bar, just as the weather started to close in. From what had been forecast, this was a great result, and we put on our wet weathers for the next part of the run over the desert road. desert only stretches for 20 or 30 kilometres along the Ruapehu Plains, and although we could only make out glimpses of the mountain, the rain squalls added a certain drama to the epic landscape. We had a quiet meal at the Irish pub up the road from our motel and planned our route for the big Wednesday, Palmerston North to Ashburton. It was still overcast when we mounted up and wheeled the bikes again south towards the capital. We made the run down to the Kapiti coast with the morning peak hour and struck pretty heavy rain from the Wellington Freeway to the Cook Strait Ferry. We made our way to the embarkation point ahead of a long line of Harleys all making the crossing. The ferry takes a few hours to sail from Wellington, over the Cook Strait and into the Marlborough Sound and its berth at Picton. We had a meal on board, checked email via the ship's Wi-Fi and chatted with some of the other rally travellers while we waited to dock. Conditions were better on the mainland, but we still had over 400 kilometres to go, so we didn't hang about in Picton, just gassed up and headed south down good old State Highway 1 towards Kaikoura. Crossing the Hunderley Ranges south of Blenheim is always good value, and the ride down the Kaikoura coast always interesting. We stopped for a photo shoot on the rocky coast and had a laugh as the forklift driver got chased by a basking seal. We pushed on to Christchurch, rode around the outskirts of the city and onto the Canterbury plains as the shadows were starting to lengthen. We arrived at our motel in Ashburton around dusk and made our way to the nearby pub for another nice meal. It was only 12 hours or so back, but Palmerston North seemed like a world away. Thursday dawned fine, and it was nice to get underway under blue skies again. We caught up to the cloud just short of Geraldine and stopped for breakfast after veering west. The boys hadn't seen any of the Alps or ranges on the way down, as they'd been shrouded in cloud all the way, but the forecast for the Mackenzie and Central Otago was encouraging. So we headed towards Lake Taupo after scrambled eggs. We hunkered down in Taupo for an hour, took a few portraits, and waited as the overcast gradually broke up. By the time we arrived at Lake Pukaki at the foot of Mount Cook, We were bathed in glorious sunshine. We stopped for more photos and drank in the magnificent scene, until time started to press, and we were still a long way from Dunedin. Then it was on to Cromwell via Lindis Pass and a coffee stop at Alexandra, before heading back to the coast at Palmerston via Route 85. One mention doesn't really do the quality of that ride justice. It was outstanding. From the pass to the coast, a feast of landscapes and vistas opened up before us. From there, we rejoined State Highway 1 and made our way to Dunedin in the late afternoon. 1,850 kilometres of prime riding under our belts by the time we arrived. The forklift driver was wont to say at the end of it all, "You know, I've ridden all across America, Europe, Asia and Australia, some of those places a number of times, but this is probably the best ride I've been on. New Zealand. What an amazing place." True that.